Hello mga kababayan, welcome to my channel. Welcome to Laruan ni Obi-Wan. For today's review, we are going to take a look at Defenders of the Earth, Mandrake the Magician Master of Illusion by Neca. So for quick identification on the toy shelves and for those who are interested in how this action figure in boxed form looks like, so let's do a quick 360 of the action figure in boxed form. And for those who are interested in taking a look at this figure online and searching for it online, we have the corresponding serial numbers and box codes. So let's examine the contents of our purchase. So we have the action figure, and on the top upper left we have the blaster or the pistol. On the lower right we have the magician's cane or staff. Since we have a pistol on board, we have two blast effects. So blast effect number 1, blast effect number 2. So for hand interchangeability, we have several on board. So we have a pair for the left hand and a cane holding hand for the right side or the right hand. So for the left, it's going to be a splayed hand and a pistol holding hand. Okay, so we are ready to discuss accessories. So let's start with the handsets. All of the handsets that comes with this action figure, they have a hinge point for articulation. So this came off from the figure right out of packaging. It's going to be a pair of fists. So let's move on to the next accessory, which is the pistol. So these are the details on the pistol. So let me show you the other side. And for the blast effects, it's just a plug system, but you still have a hole on the barrel, wherein if you have any other blast effect accessories, you could still possibly use it. But on board in package, we already have two. So it's just a plug system, and you do it this way. So this is for the short one, which I think majority of the toy collectors would be using this. The other one would be the longer version. We have a point of aim and a point of impact. So it was what I was telling: point of aim, point of impact. Okay, and the last accessory that we have would be the cane or the magician's staff. So we have a diamond head for the head of the cane. So the staff is black and the point is silver, and we have a crystal for the head. So I took out the handsets that came with this action figure in package. The fists, I interchanged it with a splayed hand for the left and a cane holding hand for the right. So let's do a 360 view of the base figure, so we could really appreciate the amount of detail that was put into it. Okay, so before we discuss articulation points on this figure, let us first deal with the nice aspects of it, the details. So when you take this figure out of packaging, immediately subject this action figure to some heat treatment. So for the joints and all of the parts of the action figure that you have articulation points, you have to subject it to heat treatment, especially the hands, wherein you possibly need to interchange hands. So the fists could possibly break, the pegs on the fist could possibly break if you don't apply heat to them. So that is just a word of caution, since this is almost a $32 figure. So let's move on to the head area. So the head area, so the details on the head sculpt, let's first deal with the flesh tone. So the flesh tone, the paint that was used for the head and the hands, the flesh tones are the same. So the neck, the face, the ears, and the hands, the flesh tone color is the same. It's uniform. So that is really good for Neca. So if you think that the tall brimmed hat is something as an accessory that could possibly be taken off the figure, that is fixed onto the figure. So even if you subject the head sculpt to 30 to a minute of heat treatment, it's just going to be useless, because the tall brimmed hat is really nicely glued onto the head. Plus, if you try to yank that tall brimmed hat off the head of the figure, it's going to damage the head sculpt or the hat, because I tried and I almost damaged the head sculpt of this figure. Good that I did not go any further out of curiosity. Okay, so let's move on to the body of the figure, because the details that's really nice would also be on the body, because we have a two-coat system. So we have a black long coat and a red inner coat. So the red inner coat and the black coat, that is separate pieces of plastic that is glued together. So it's going to hinder a little bit of articulation points because you have a bit of thicker plastic on board. And since this is a tuxedo, you expect a long tail for the tuxedo. So really formal attire. Okay. So little details that really matter. We also have painted handkerchief, but the thing that I really miss on this action figure would be the bow tie. So I just got accustomed to watching Defenders of the Earth, and we have images of Mandrake with a bow tie. So that is the thing that is missing on this action figure, but that is something that you could already add, or a custom piece that you could add to your personal copy. Okay, so next really nice thing that we have on this action figure would be the inclusion of a soft goods cape, which is double-sided. So we have an inner side that is red. The materials that were used for the cape is really top-notch, so it's nice and glossy and thick. So for the outer cape, it is black and glossy, and the edges, the top edges are with wire, but the bottom edges are not wired. So the wire that was used for the cape actually is not really thick and heavy that it's going to throw off the articulation point for the cape. So it is just nice and pliable, easy to bend, and it is not really weighty, unlike your second-hand or third party made capes, wherein sometimes the wire are really nice, really thick, that it really puts weight onto the figure, especially when you try to bend the wire in different ways. But the wires that were used for this figure are just the thin variety, so easy to bend, easy to manipulate, and not weighty. Okay, so for the arms, we have really fine details, especially since he has a coat on and we have the dress shirt underneath. So the paint on the white dress shirt is peeking through the cuff line, so that's a nice inclusion for this figure. They did not cheapen out on that aspect. And for the arms, you could see crease system, so you really note that it is a really nice looking suit. So that same goes with the pants, because as you could see, we have that crease line on the pant area, so really nice detail. And we have two-toned shoes for the feet. So I also subjected this action figure to a stand test with the other action figures that I have on board. So does this figure stand on shelves nicely? Is it well balanced? The answer is yes. It's not going to topple over later like your McFarlane produced action figures, wherein majority of McFarlane produced action figures, the upper body is going to be really bulbous and much of the plastic is going to be on the upper torso, and sometimes it throws the balance of the figure. But for this figure, the balance is just nice and right. So we are ready to discuss articulation points on this action figure. So let's start with the head. So for tilts, so do we have tilts for this head? Yes, we do. Just a little bit, not really much. So for side to side motion, we have ample side to side motion. Rocker motion for the head, also possible. So for magic poses like this, and you have the cane on the right hand, and you have a spell binding motion on the left, and you have the head crooked that way. Okay, so let's move towards the body. Since we have the two coat system, quite thick plastic, it's going to hinder articulation point on the diaphragm area. I feel that there is a articulation point underneath there, but because of the thickness of the coat, it's going to be hindered. But the articulation point that's going to compensate for the loss of articulation point on the diaphragm area is going to be on the waistline. So let's put the figure on a T pose. So for the waistline, we have side to side motion, and as you could hear, we still have that creaking plastic. So just imagine taking this figure out of packaging and it's really stiff that way. So we have a little bit of tilting motion, forward and backward, sideways, little bit of sideways too. And for the arms, you just have these 2 points. So one folding on a vertical note, and for sideways on a T pose, it's just going to be that. So it's just going to be 2 points. For rotation of the arm, that is possible. We have a 2 bend system for the elbow, and how does that bend look like? So really nice and clean. And we have rotation on the elbow. We don't have a cut on the bicep for rotation. So for the hand, since the hand has a hinge, so we have a hinge point and also rotation. Okay, so the weak point for this action figure is just going to be somehow on this area and on the arms. It's possible to put it on a T pose like this, but as you could hear and see, that click and that creak, that's it. So we don't have another click, or you could not hear another click. It's just 2 clicks and 360 degrees. So that is just the limitation for the arms, the left and the right for this figure. So let's move towards the legs. Okay, so for the leg area, side kicks possible, but only for one leg. How is the articulation point for the one leg? So raises possible, sideways just a little bit but not much, but okay. So depends on the articulation point how you're going to rotate the ball on the hip area, because as you could see, there is that rotation point instead of a thigh cut. So you could hear that. We have a single point of articulation for the knee, and we also have rotation on the knee area. The foot is on a ball, but because of the design of the pant, you don't have any articulation point of that hinge system. It's just going to be really regulated by the ends of the pants. But we have toe articulation for the foot, just that much. So as for rocker, we have a rocker point for the foot. So if you have a splayed pose like this, so you could adjust for balance by using the rocker system for the foot. So those are the articulation points for this figure. So this Mandrake the Magician action figure is more on the tall side, considering total length, including the top of the tall brimmed hat. So for actual measurements, the figure is around the exactly 7-inch mark. So if you're excluding the top of the tall brimmed hat, just the crown of the head, this is a 6.5-inch figure. Here is Mandrake the Magician compared to my Action Force Valaverse action figures. For final size comparison, we have Mandrake the Magician with Skeletor and my custom King Grayskull action figure. So this ends my review of Neca Mandrake the Magician. A really fine, nice looking action figure, worth the $1 that you're going to spend on it. So if you're looking to take a break from the superhero line, you want something different, then you have this action figure to look into. So I hope this video helps you in your purchasing decision, whether it's going to be just a break from your usual, or you're really looking for this guy. So this is once again Laruan ni Obi-Wan. See you on the next action figure review.